Welcome to Mean Age Daydream with me, Brian McWilliams, where we're going to be making some jokes, laughing out at broken world, but also laying out some philosophy for the future, how we can fix this mess we're in and have a great time doing it all with a Mean Age Daydream. What's up, sweet buttercups? Love that. I hit the wrong button. I'm like, oh, great. Now I got this goofy shot of me like, fuck. But I did do my best. What's that? Wilhelm scream. I did my best Wilhelm scream. Welcome, guys, to Mean Age Daydream. I'm, of course, beautiful, bald Brian McWilliams, your host for this wonderful traipse down all things ridiculous that have been happening in the media surrounding Donald Trump's would-be assassination. So we are going to talk about that today. Welcome for those of you that may not have known about me before. Of course, we got a lot of people coming in from Part of the Problem. Big ups to Dave for having me on that show. Love Dave. He and I have gone back a long ways now, and he is a wonderful man. Handsome, loving, and of course announced a huge announcement on Monday. You guys probably saw that everybody on that show now has to be topless, and yet has me on the show before? Me? This physique? You're going to wait, Dave? Fucking bullshit. Anyway, welcome, Part of the Problem viewers, to the show. Glad to have you. You can find everything about us, of course, at lionsofliberty.com. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/lionsofliberty for our bonus content. And, of course, you can also join us on Locals. All right, let's hop into it, guys. So, Donald Trump. Crazy thing happened on the way to the forum, guys. He ended up getting shot at. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. You know, obviously it happened over the weekend. My show airing, the podcast is going to air Wednesday. Of course, the live stream I'm doing now on Tuesday. A lot has come out. We still don't know a ton about the motivations behind this Crooks character that's a shooter. 20-year-old kid out of Pennsylvania. Seems like your everyday run-of-the-mill nerdy doofus, and got it up in his brain that he was going to shoot Donald Trump. Now, the question remains how he was going to get up and shoot Donald Trump, how he was allowed to get to the position to shoot at Donald Trump when I have been in the area. Like, I was running the press for the Libertarian National Convention. I had to deal with Secret Service. And I'll tell you this, the detail was completely different that was there at the Libertarian National Convention that was opposed to what was happening at this speech in Butler, Pennsylvania. Now, many people have pointed out that they have 5'2" dwarf women guarding a 6'4" president. I'm pretty sure Donald Trump's taller than me. Why you'd have tiny women guarding a massive man, unable to block the anything above, let's say, his mid-sternum, doesn't make a lot of sense. The head of the Secret Service, who of course is a woman who came over and was hired after doing security at Pepsi. I don't understand that. At Nestle, I don't understand how you get hired for that job. I would have presumed that they promote from within. I'm shocked as hell that they would hire somebody external to run the Secret Service. I figured that that's something you have to be groomed into. And if nothing else, you'd hire somebody that was probably military, ex-military, something like that, coming straight out of the ranks that would have that sort of direct experience. Again, I don't know a ton about her either. This is all stuff that I'm picking up tangentially, just looking at what's going on as this story evolves. But it certainly is odd that this kid can get up on a roof, and we've got numerous videos of people pointing and being like, hey, there's this guy up on the roof. You've got a straight line of sight to Donald Trump, raising the question why there wasn't a Secret Service member on the roof the kid's on. I mean, if you have snipers, you've got two snipers on one roof to the right of Donald Trump, and no snipers on a roof directly 150 yards in front of the stage. Why? Why not? Not even just somebody hanging out? Maybe just put a guy up there to hang out, fly a kite. You know? Seems like a fairly obvious thing to do. Details of this are coming out. Apparently, they had removed some service people. They'd swapped out his regular retainer of Secret Service agents. It doesn't make a lot of sense. What we do know is that this Crooks kid is dead. We know that there was a firefighter who had definitive libertarian leanings and had posted about Killdozer on his social media. So automatically a man that I hold close to my heart who was tragically killed in this. Numerous other people were hit. We don't know if they're dead yet. And what do we see in the immediate aftermath? Right? This is what I'm saying. This is why I titled the episode, Trump Lives, the Media Dies. And we're going to get to the gaslighting for President Biden, which is one of the most despicable things I have ever seen in my entire life. But Trump survives. And I remember this happened, I'm watching, and we immediately had to walk to meet our friends at a bar. I mean, it was, I think, like an hour after this happened. We're walking to meet our friends at a bar. Hilariously, I walk in and I'm like, what the fuck? Can you guys see this? I mean, what's happening here? And my wife's like, hey, why don't you chill? And I'm like, chill? What? The president just got shot. What are you doing? Chill, what am I supposed to talk about? How's your gardening? Is your kid on a normal shit schedule? Are you potty trained? Like, what am I supposed to talk about? So I go in and I look at the CNN and it says on the screen, you know, they've got the initial CNN headline, which drew the most condemnation, the most ridicule, and appropriately so. President Trump, you know, Secret Service removes Trump from stage after he trips and falls down, or something like that. This is not verbatim what it was, but that's essentially what it was. And I remember I retweeted on my Twitter profile. Then they changed it to, and this has gotten some pushback. I know John Ziegler over at the Death of Journalism podcast pushed back on this, and I understand it slightly. But there were also numerous outlets, including CNN, which I tweeted an hour after the fact, saying that they are investigating, you know, investigations underway on whether or not this was an assassination attempt. Well, it definitely was an assassination attempt. We know it was an assassination attempt. An hour after the fact, the guy who shot at Trump was definitely dead. There was definitely blood on you've got a dead guy in the stands. You've got people on the ground that were there reporting that don't know anything that's going on. How is this possible? We know what it was. Everybody can see on X. CNN, you can track in real time, just like the rest of us, what's going on here, because X was the source of information. That's where we are. And that's a good thing, because X is the least censored of all of them. Now, I'm not saying it's uncensored. And there's been stuff going on now with people like Destiny, the Omni douche, who have been out there. I mean, this dickhead was saying, oh my God, a Trump supporter got shot, boo hoo hoo. What a piece of human garbage Destiny is. And Musk saying, well, we're going to demonetize him. And the leftists now, libs of TikTok and leftism and others, are now finding people that have posted on social media that they were happy that Trump got shot, right? And trying to get them canceled, trying to get them fired. That's despicable. If you're doing that, you're a piece of trash. You shouldn't be playing, just because they did it to you doesn't mean you should do the exact same thing back. If it doesn't make it okay, doesn't make it right, doesn't make you somehow a fighter for freedom to try to ruin someone's life for being brainwashed. Let's not forget about this. For being brainwashed, for being conned into hating Donald Trump so much that they would post something that insanely horrible. Remember that. If you libs of TikTok, if you wokeists or whatever you want to do it, whatever your fucking profile is that is targeted towards the left, and I follow a lot of them, I find them entertaining as well. You have been going out of your way to point out, like the rest of us, that the media is complicit in demonizing Donald Trump, that the media lies, that the media ignores stories that don't go along with their narrative, that they will refuse to cover facts. And this has been on record. If you'll recall the NPR story that was written by, it's got a guy named like Ich bin ein Berliner, but it might have been, actually his name might have been Yuri Berliner. I think it was Yuri Berliner. Yuri Berliner's writing for NPR saying, we intentionally did not cover truth coming out about Russiagate, the truth coming out about COVID, because specifically it would help Donald Trump. They will tell you that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy all day, every day. President Biden has said it numerous times. You have people still saying it today. The dickheads at the Lincoln Project, speaking of Dave Smith, just retweeted right before I jumped on here, the Lincoln Project, which of course purports itself to be a Republican army that has been so upset by what Donald Trump represents that they have to attack him. Bullshit. It's a shill organization that's raising funds from idiot Democrats. They retweeted, this is hours ago, today, Tuesday. I'm recording this Tuesday afternoon. After the president's been shot, what was that, Sunday? Saturday? I can't remember. I think it was Sunday. No, it was Saturday. Excuse me. They tweet out a video once again comparing him to Hitler and saying how Hitler took power. It wasn't just given to him. If you understand what's been done here, you can understand the logic of how this Crooks character would believe that he was saving humanity by shooting Donald Trump. You can understand why these idiots are out there posting that they wish Donald Trump had been shot. It's not that difficult of a logic leap. So don't go out of your way to try to destroy these people's lives because they had their brain mush stomped on by a corporate media run by the DNC, complicitly agreed upon by all the powers that be, that this was the narrative handed down that was going to be repeated ad nauseum. Don't try to ruin those people's lives because they got fucked in the noggin. Okay? Now, to that extent, I tweeted back at Reason's Nick Gillespie, who I'll be honest, I always liked Nick. I've lost a lot of respect for him over the past few months. And frankly, for a lot of people at Reason over the past few months, as they've continuously ramped up attacks on the Libertarian Party, as they've continuously gone with the Trump derangement syndrome narratives that have been, very much apparent in all of their coverage. Nick Gillespie and at least one other editor had responded to now Vice President candidate J.D. Vance and his post that the rhetoric that the left has been using, and remember, this comes from the top. This is Joe Biden repetitively comparing Donald Trump to the greatest threat, saying he will destroy a republic, saying that he's a dictator from day one, which, by the way, outside of the RNC at this very moment, there are 4 trucks lined up outside that say dictator from day one on them. I'm going to talk a little bit about the reaction to Donald Trump and the quote-unquote need to turn the temperature down that the Democrats were calling for because Donald Trump had the audacity to get up and say, fight, fight, fight after being shot in the head. These people continue to push the same bullshit. There doesn't seem to be any remorse in that fact. But to believe that the president, the media, the DNC, every congressional representative that's out there repetitively saying Donald Trump is a threat to democracy would not lead to some sort of understanding in the general population's mind from the left side of things that he's a threat to democracy and may need to be taken out is ridiculous. For Nick Gillespie to tweet that out, for anybody to tweet that out and say that and what Nick said was, well, the shooter's responsible for himself. Okay, yeah, he is. He is, Nick. What led him down the path here? Do we really think we live in a vacuum? I mean, this is different from saying that guns don't shoot people. I agree with guns don't shoot people. Very different from what inspired a gunman to use a gun for said purposes. So after this, right, Trump gets shot. The most iconic photograph probably of a decade is created when Donald Trump gets up and raises his fist in the air and says, fight, 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 with blood streaming down his face, fighting against the Secret Service midgets that are trying to get him off the stage. And afterwards, literally immediately afterwards, you've got Democrat operatives that are on mainstream publications or mainstream networks saying things like Donald Trump is at fault for not immediately coming out, holding a press conference or issuing a statement telling everybody to calm the temperature down. Because it's Donald Trump's fault, right? It's the victim's fault here. And this is out of the classic playbook that these leftists use, where they try to take somebody that's clearly on the abusive side of things, they try to flip it on its head and make the abuser into the victim. These people are clearly doing the same thing. They are taking Donald Trump, who is literally a shooting victim here, has been a victim of numerous government coups against him. Let's not forget about Russiagate. Let's not forget all of the absolute gaslighting that's gone on about everything from the economic situation that was taken over by Joe Biden to the jobs numbers that's gone on. Just blatant lies, personal attacks, ad hominem attacks, comparisons to Hitler nonstop. He's somehow the victim here, aka insinuating that somehow he's, I'm sorry, the media is the victim here. Sorry, apologies. Donald Trump's not the victim here. I was flipping him on my own. Their argument is that somehow him and his supporters, well, they they brought this on themselves, right? Because they're so violent, because their rhetoric is so evil. It's not the fact that these people have been calling for this, essentially. And what I tweeted out was essentially this, immediately after this happened. Is it a coincidence that these people have been calling him a threat to democracy for all this time? Is it a mere coincidence that he was shot today, or was this the plan all along? And their continued emphasis on calling him a Nazi and a threat to democracy continues to this day. So one has to wonder now, because apparently aides in the White House, AOC was very upset about this, aides in the White House have said, well, we're resigned to a Donald Trump presidency. Because if it's anything like Ronald Reagan, you get a bump, and he has seen a bump, and rightfully fucking so. So you see a bump from this shooting attempt. They are resigned to the fact that Joe Biden's going to lose. So the question remains, since they continue this rhetoric, even though they're calling, quote unquote, for a cooling of the temperature from Donald Trump, is it a plan all along to have this happen? Is this a feature of the system? Is this the end result that they're looking for because they don't think they can beat him? So this is the only outcome that's possible for them to actually succeed. I mean, you certainly have to think about it. And the media in this, at this point in time, we're seeing some logic, some reason come through, like Morning Joe was canceled. I think a good move by MSNBC to not have Morning Joe on Monday. And they said specifically they didn't want to risk any number of their 12 panelists saying something that would be beyond the pale offensive. And I could see that happening. In truth, every MSNBC show probably should have been just taken off the air. If we're being perfectly honest, that would have made a lot more sense to me. So after all this shakeout, all this haranguing of, oh my God, the political temperature has risen to such an extent, and clearly it's Donald Trump's fault, although we're not going to explicitly say that, although some of us will. So after that, Joe Biden takes it upon himself to address the nation, as only Joe Biden can, right? Because, old Grandpa Ice Cream dementia, he's going to calm us down. He's going to bring us front and center. He's going to lick to the bottom of that cone and slurp out the sweet, gooey juice that is his brain from the bottom of the sugar cone, probably waffle cone, depending on how hungry Joe Biden is, and make sure that we know it's going to be okay. So what does Joe Biden tell the nation? Well, let's watch and see and break down exactly what it is that he says here, because it's some of the most egregious bullshit that I've ever heard in my life. And this was shared by a journalist, Simon Ateba. I'm probably massacring his name, who was notably a journalist for, I believe, an African paper who had his press credentials revoked for being too probing in questions. So here you go. Let's hear what old Grandpa Joe has to say here.
Americans, I want to speak to you tonight about the need for us to lower the temperature in our politics. And to remember, while we may disagree, we are not enemies. We're neighbors. We're friends, co-workers, citizens, and most importantly, we're fellow Americans. We must stand together. Yesterday's shooting at Donald Trump's rally in Pennsylvania calls on all of us to take a step back, take stock of where we are, how we go forward from here. Thankfully, former Trump is not seriously injured.
Former Trump is not seriously injured. Current Trump happens to be injured. He's talking about time traveler Trump. He's talking about a younger version of Donald Trump, of course. Current Trump actually did get shot in the ear.
I spoke with him last night. I'm grateful. He's doing well, and Jill and
I would love to hear the recording of that. I mean, I'm guessing Trump didn't just say, "Hey Joe, thanks for encouraging somebody to shoot me by constantly calling me a threat to our democracy." But anyway,
keep him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victims who was killed. Corey was a husband, a father, a volunteer firefighter, a hero, sheltering his family from those bullets. We should all hold his family and all those injured in our prayers. Earlier today, I spoke about an ongoing investigation. We do not know the motive of the shooter yet. We don't know his opinions or affiliations.
Now that's interesting because we don't. It's kind of a curious spot. But this is about 6 minutes long, but I'm going to be interrupting it, so I'll break it up. We don't know his opinions or affiliations, except that they very quickly jumped on the fact, and I remember this seeing immediately, trending on X and in the media, immediately told us that he was a registered Republican. Right? That was very important to get out there instantaneously as soon as they had a suspect in mind that this man was a registered Republican. Now, it came out quickly after that, of course, he had also donated to, I think, Act Blue and some other, and donated to Joe Biden at one point, I think last election cycle, but small amounts, $15. So yeah, it does seem to be interesting that this kid didn't have a lot of social media, which you'd think would have led to a healthier mind, right? And less poisoned mind than those who are on it a lot. But just remember, they immediately had tried to categorize this as Republican on Republican violence.
We don't know whether he had help or support or if he communicated with anyone else.
Like the FBI, per se, maybe they had helped him get armament, or the CIA that told him how to get up there. You never know. I mean, we don't know if he communicated with those people just yet.
Law enforcement professionals, as I speak, are investigating those questions. Tonight, I want to speak to what we do know. A former president was shot, an American citizen killed, while simply exercising his freedom to support the candidate of his choosing. We cannot, we must not go down this road in America. We've traveled before throughout our history. Violence has never been the answer. Whether it's with members of Congress of both parties being targeted and shot.
All right, and again, I was trying to think last night. I was on a call with our some of our, we call them Mufasa level guys. We do like a Zoom call with some of the people that provide us on Patreon with a good little boost. But we were trying to think the last time that there was actual violence by somebody on the right that you would call, as opposed to somebody on the left, because most of what I can recall is left on right violence. The Scalia shooting, the shooting in Arizona of a congresswoman, or I say the wife of a congressman, right, shot in the head. I was trying to think of what the last instance would be of actual violence. I mean, Antifa, Black Lives Matter riots, those were all obviously leftists, not necessarily against rightists, but when you talk about Antifa, you're talking about clearly targeting people that are not on the left. When you talk about Black Lives Matter, you're talking about rioters that are rioting for leftist causes, causing massive property damage, billions of dollars. When you talk about the trans movement, you've got violence against women, quote unquote TERFs. You've got hateful rhetoric. You've got rape threats. When you talk about these things, typically it's coming left on right and not the other way around. And my reasoning for this always comes around to the fact that leftists are so much more emotionally vested in these concepts, right? I mean, we all know politics is religion at this point in time. And for the right, politics, religion, but that religion happens to be tied into religion, And on the left, that religion is tied into climate change, or tied into trans activism, or tied into black, race activism, or whatever it might be. And the identifier there is that it's such a threat, right? We're always told that everything's an existential threat. Joe Biden himself said that white supremacy was the number one threat in America, one of the fucking stupidest things I've ever heard in my life. When you have people continuously telling you that climate change or white supremacy or X, Y, and Z, swap in the flavor of the week, is a threat to humanity, these people are going to believe it, and they do, and they wrap everything up. And then the violence is an ends to, it's the means. My brain's not working today. A means to an end, and the ends justify the means. There we go. God. So naturally, violence is not something that's outside the realm of possibility. And in fact, if you have to do it, you have to do it, right? Because you're saving humanity, you're saving our society, you're saving culture in the future, and whatever it might be. All right.
Or a violent mob attacking the Capitol on January 6th, or a brutal attack on the spouse of former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
So now look at what this scumfuck does. He's talking about a president being shot, and then comparing it to, again, attacks on both members of Congress, bullshit. Now, he should mention that also, don't forget Rand Paul was attacked. Talk about an attack on a member of Congress. He was attacked by his leftist neighbor, and that was then celebrated by many in the media, celebrated by many prominent leftist figures. But let's also start like January 6th. January 6th, the only people that got shot on January 6th were the people that went into there. I am not going to say that it was a rightful movement. I still think that those people were stupid to do it. I do think that similar to the result of the Donald Trump assassination attempt, they were goaded into it, and that itself was stupid. And Trump definitely plays a role in that. But they weren't armed. They didn't brutally beat anybody. They seemed to be, from the videos at least, going through after the initial push and were escorted through by the Capitol Police. Again, I don't think they should have been in there. I don't think they should have done this. But I also question how many people were inciting this beyond Donald Trump, because Donald Trump said in his speech, do not go in and be violent. Do not partake in this. And then you have people on the ground. We still don't know what half these people that were, clearly on the ground and even confirmed by the CIA that they had people, there were FBI and CIA there, or at least not confirmed. Right? It's a bridge too far. They will not answer a straight question denying that they had people there, which essentially is a confirmation. So he talks about January 6th, because obviously to talk about January 6th is the Democrat war drum they have to beat. So he brings it in immediately to try to remind people that, well, don't forget, even though one of our people, even though somebody shot at Donald Trump, let's not forget that January 6th was such an affront to democracy that we have to weigh that in as well very heavily. Then he goes on, of course, to talk about Nancy Pelosi. Now, Nancy Pelosi, if you recall, I don't think you can put this up to political violence more than you can put it up to a fucking nut bar with a hammer got in her house. Are you seriously trying to compare an assassination attempt on a president to a doofus with a hammer, high on whatever, who people are alleging is the lover of Pelosi's husband, true or not, I don't know. Are you seriously bringing this shit into this conversation right now? Because this is grasping at straws.
Or information and intimidation on election officials, or the kidnapping plot against the sitting governor.
A kidnapping plot against the... You mean the same kidnapping plot that was organized by the FBI under your watch? That one? The same kidnapping plot that the suspects were then released because it was entrapment and clearly an FBI operation? John Odermatt on Felony Friday, our Monday show, had on one of those suspects that was imprisoned and then released because it was an FBI setup. And this dickhole is on TV addressing the nation, pretending, and maybe he's not pretending, maybe he just doesn't know because Joe Biden doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about all the time. He's pretending that that wasn't a setup. He's pretending that authentically there was a kidnapping plot against Gretchen Whitmer and that somehow that compares. The only way Gretchen Whitmer's situation compares to what happened to Donald Trump is if the FBI was involved in setting it up. That's the only way you can compare the two, Joe. Are you doing it on purpose? Gotta wonder. I won't do too much more of this. This is mostly what I want to talk about.
An attempted assassination on Donald Trump. There is no place in America for this kind of violence, for any violence ever. Period. No exceptions. We can't allow this violence to be normalized. You know, the political record in this country has gotten very heated. It's time to cool it down.
Cool it down.
We all have a responsibility to do that.
Cool it down.
Yes, we have deeply felt strong.
Anyway, enough of that. We got to cool it down, right? We're going to cool down the rhetoric. And at the same time, they tell you we need to cool down the rhetoric, and none of the rhetoric's been cooled down. In fact, it's interesting. Like, I was reading a post from Grums. I don't know if you guys follow this guy, Grums. He is a video game designer. He worked with World of Warcraft back before the Great Awakening in the entertainment industry. And he had tweeted out what he is calling the Great Recalibration. Now, the Great Recalibration, as he sees it, is the dismantling of the American population's brainwashing at the hands of the media, at the hands of the left, at the hands of government, to this, acceptance of DEI, of ESG, of all these woke wars that we are taking part in and are inundated with, cancel culture and everything else. Because they're seeing in real time the breakdowns. It started with COVID, and I've argued before too, we're seeing it in an overarching sense in 2024, right? Because you think about all the things that are falling apart. The climate change narrative is falling apart. You're seeing the pushback against all of the global, WEF nonsense about attacking on farming, attacking on fertilizing, attacking on the ease of creation of food and ample products. You're seeing farmers revolt against that. You're seeing revolts against these idiotically inane environmental policies that are impacting our energy prices. You're seeing a resurgence in nuclear, which makes complete sense. You're seeing people react to the realities around them and how the promises, the Greta Thunberg deleting the world is going to be underwater and in a half desert, half under the ocean by 2023 tweet that she posted in 2013. You're seeing people look around and go, this has been delivered to us. This is horseshit. Climate, the trans issue is another example of that, as the evidence comes out that they've just blatantly been lying to us. And we're going to talk about Gavin Newsom committing political suicide on the trans issue at the end of the show. You're seeing the COVID narrative completely fall apart, as now it's basically accepted that it came out of the Wuhan lab. It's now confirmed that the U.S. government has been funding gain of function research in the Wuhan lab. You're seeing the breakdowns as far as the efficacy of the vaccines. You're seeing now Joe Biden, who we were told was sharp as a tack, was our great leader, the best version of himself, says Joe Scarborough. We're seeing that clearly on display for these people, these leftists who are conned into it. Not just leftists, by the way. People in the middle, anybody that wasn't really paying, attention or absolving themselves from the communal lies of the corporate press and DNC operatives could see forever that Joe Biden didn't have it. For 2 years now, you could see Joe Biden didn't have it, that he was falling apart. Now, blatantly, after the debate, you see people going, Jesus Christ, how the hell were we so misled? How are we lied to? I believed what I was told. I wasn't into it. I mean, look, believing what I was at a party with my, friends of my daughters that are now my friends at a kid's birthday party, and people legitimately were asking me how I could think that Donald Trump was a better option, a less authoritarian option than Joe Biden, when he clearly was going to be a dictator. When Donald Trump is elected, and I think he will not be a dictator. Add it to the list of things that will go down in 2024 as a bubble bursting. But this great recalibration is also coming here with people turning on previously understood statements that would go along with what they're told, what they think the zeitgeist is in society, right? So what he had tweeted out, and let me find this because it was a very, very well said tweet. Hold on one second. The great recalibration. He's talking about this in the context of Jack Black and Kyle Glass. Now, Jack Black, if you don't know, had a concert. I think it was in Australia. It was Kyle Glass's birthday, I believe, and he was his bandmate in Tenacious D. So he had a cake, a big robot brought it out, and he goes, okay, blow the candles, make a wish. And what Kyle Glass had said on stage, you can find video of this, was, I hope next time they hit Trump. This immediately went viral. Jack Black, and of course, had notably been on stage at Joe Biden's $30 million George Clooney run fundraiser, where it really, I think, started to appear very evident to people in that entertainment bubble that he was a broken person when he stood on stage staring off into nothingness and Barack Obama had to guide him off. Clooney now, of course, calling for Biden to resign. Kyle Glass is up there and vocalizes this thought, right? Well, he shouldn't have. I wish they didn't miss Trump. So here's what Grums had posted, and his at GRUMMZ, if you want to follow him. So the video goes viral. People are now saying boycott these two. They canceled their concert, right? All the rest of the concerts, the tour, canceled. Jack Black's like, done, canceled. I'm shocked and appalled by what Kyle Glass said. Here's what Tenacious D says, because Kyle Glass now has apologized today. But Grum says the majority of people don't have their own opinions, or rather convictions. They only express what is deemed popular or acceptable according to the Overton window of acceptable discourse. We all know this to be true, right? We talk about the Overton window all the time on this show. What is happening is a great recalibration of that window. For years, we were told it was acceptable to have political violence on the left, mostly peaceful riots. And anything on the right, a punch, simple words, okay symbols, walking into a building was ultra-violent. The media and celebrities led this narrative, cemented the Overton window firmly in their preferred direction. The vast majority of people complied. The social pact demands it. It whipped them into a mob mentality, and people did very mean things to each other, cancel culture, etc., because it was acceptable and approved by the narrative. This is how good people turn into bad people. But after the actual visceral failures of Biden, that window began to shift. No amount of cognitive bias could prevent people from going, "This is weird, we've been lied to." COVID revelations helped. It became acceptable for people for the first time in a long time to question the narrative. They can now talk about it at the office, at home, in public, and social media. Accurate to a T. This is exactly right. This is exactly what's happening. And as I said earlier, it's not just happening with Biden. It's happening with climate. It's happening with DEI shit. It's because, and a lot of this also stems from children. The trans issue has brought a lot of people back to sanity. COVID here in Los Angeles, despite what people might think, brought a lot of people back to sanity because they saw what was happening, especially with their kids. You're talking about children being kept home from school, forced to stay home. You're talking about a teachers union that constantly is demanding more money, more resources, delivering a shittier product every generation that goes deeper into this. These people insisted for over a year that they would not go back to school, even though they had the lowest risk because they're working with children. There's no transmission among children. It's like ridiculous. People saw this. They see how they're trying to make their children get, inoculated with this vaccine. I know people in LA who are the left of the left who said, under no circumstances was I ever going to let my kid get that shot. They may have been first to line up to get it themselves and regretted it. They were adamant, there's no way in hell. I'm not letting my kid be experimented on. The cognitive dissonance cannot hold up to what's happening now. The great recalibration is happening in front of your eyes. And this is why you see an immediate bump for Donald Trump. You're going to see people now questioning what's being said. This is why you could get away with Kathy Griffin holding up Trump's severed head before and not be canceled and not have to apologize and not have her tour dates ripped away from her. Kyle Glass can't get away with it because everybody is stopping and saying, this is fucking nuts. We are told that it was acceptable to hate this person, that he would destroy our nation, and that you could say literally anything. And recall how often on old Twitter that they would remove people for saying quote unquote hate speech or quote unquote aggressive threatening comments. I remember people would get kicked off for saying like whatever, I eat shit and die, and they would get their account suspended for a month. And meanwhile, people on the left are viscerally threatening, parents that didn't agree with whatever trans ideology was going on in school, or telling people that didn't get vaccinated that they should die in a gutter, or Jimmy Kimmel telling you if you didn't get vaccinated, you shouldn't be admitted to a hospital. This is changing. I don't want to get too excited about it because we still have so many different obstacles to overcome when it comes to the state of America, the state of politics, the state of economics, the state of media, the state of just human interaction. But I'm more optimistic than I've been in a long time that, at least from a cultural standpoint, there is going to be a recalibration or a miniature revolution, and we're going to set the clock back about 20 years. And it's amazing to say how much better the country would be if that happened. 20 years is not a long time. It's a blip in history. It's a blink of an eye. But the country's gotten so fucked so fast with what's going on with the woke left and these people that are willing to undermine society in the efforts to push forward Marxism. I believe DEI and critical thinking and all these other things are simply Marxism tied up in a pretty package. And I think that they know that it is too. Controlling the narrative, controlling the population, eroding, and I've talked about this previously on the show as well, eroding the concept of truth and understanding what your reality is around you, being able to talk to your colleagues, being able to talk to your community, like Grum said here, the ability to address Joe Biden being completely riddled with Parkinson's or Alzheimer's or whatever he's got, that now being possible is what was missing. And this is by design. It's by intent. They introduce divisive topics, they segment the population, and they make it so terrifying to bring it up. And I was talking to, again, my friends at this kids' party about this because my one friend I was talking to, Ellen, she's very much on the left. She is an actress in Los Angeles, but She and I can have rational conversations. We can explore each other's thoughts on these things. And I told her, I said, the difference is that we can do this. So many other people are terrified to do that in a work environment because what if they tell HR? What if they lose their job? There's a million reasons to fire somebody that you can create out of thin air, unless you're one of the protected classes, of course. But now you've been given permission to talk about the things that were verboten before. And that's going to create the revolution. That's going to be the check on reality, because before, your reality, your brakes to stop government bullshit or media bullshit or corporate bullshit or whatever it might be, activist bullshit, all the bullshits, your bullshit break was talking to people in your community, your neighbors, your friends, your church, wherever you might want to go, your synagogue, your fucking big truck monster rally, whatever your bullshit break was, it was getting interaction from other people that were in your community but didn't think exactly like you, or are at least willing to say shit you didn't like. We're getting back to it. So be excited. All right. Last thing. Let's see. I got two more things. One more thing. A couple more things. I gotta go pick up my daughters earlier today. So I've got about 15 more minutes of this. Real quick. Vivek Ramaswamy, man. I'll play this quick video for you guys because this is him at the RNC. And as I have said before, Angela McArdle deserves nothing but the utmost credit for getting Donald Trump to commit to freeing Ross Ulbricht. And Ross Ulbricht said, thank God, he breathed a sigh of relief. He was, when he saw Trump get, when the bullet rang out, said he was in tears because this man had promised to free him. And thank God he was alive. That is because of libertarian efforts. That is because of Angela McArdle's efforts and what we did at the Libertarian National Convention. But you'll recall, Trump also said, I will put a libertarian in my cabinet. So this journalist, and I'll say her name in a moment, found Vivek Ramaswamy at the RNC and asked him what his thoughts were. If he was going to be the libertarian in Trump's cabinet, right? Because that would be kind of a convenient way to get around it. Vivek is very libertarian in thought. He said he was a previous libertarian, but he ran as GOP. And to be honest, I have a lot of respect for Vivek for answering in this matter. So here's what Vivek Ramaswamy had to say when asked about a libertarian in Trump's cabinet.
You promised to put a libertarian in the cabinet.
Yes. And he made that promise seriously. I know. I spoke at that convention the night before he spoke there. He didn't make that light. He didn't make that promise lightly.
Are you the libertarian, and what position?
I'm very libertarian leaning, but I think that I ran as a Republican. I think that we think about this expansively in the pro-liberty movement, and I think that I think there's a libertarian nationalist alliance, actually. I know that sounds counterintuitive to a lot of people, but I gave a speech. Look at the speech I gave at NatCon. The National Libertarian Alliance, I think, is actually the future of the country. Strong borders, strong national identity, yes. But dismantle the administrative state, dismantle the deep state, dismantle the regulatory state. There we are deeply aligned. And as somebody who was college a libertarian rapper turned first vote for a libertarian, I think that there's a lot of room for the libertarian movement within the America First movement as well.
So you don't think he meant Liberty Republican? He meant like a capital L libertarian?
What he said is he was going to put a libertarian in a position of authority in the new administration. And I was glad when he said that at the Libertarian Convention. And I think it shows how open Donald Trump is to leading this country together. To say that, we may not agree with everyone on everything. That'd be weird if we did. But we're going to draw from the best of everyone to actually lead the country. And I thought that was a bold move. And it's telling that Biden, or no one from the Democratic Party, showed up at that same convention in D.C. as well.
Damn right, Vivek. They were invited. They did not show up to that convention because they have no interest in reaching across the aisle in unity and creating any different ideas or concepts or trying anything that isn't abject failure and tripling and quadrupling down on it in order to keep their cronies happy. So, Vivek, great comments there. Very interesting. And also, guys, let's not forget how nice it is to have libertarians in the conversation at the Republican National Convention. Let's not forget the echoing effects of Donald Trump being there, of Vivek Ramaswamy being there, of RFK Jr. being there. And who is responsible for that? Angela fucking McArdle is responsible for that. I take no credit. I'll take credit for getting media coverage, but that is vital. We are in the conversation. We are now power players in regards to impacting some of the policy measures, of getting some of the things that we like. If Trump wins, we actually have a shot at taking some power and having some influence. And that is unbelievable. It's something we've never had in the history of this fucking party, if I'm being perfectly honest. So, awesome. Last thing I'll wrap up on here, guys, something that really enrages me. I mentioned it earlier. Now, this is regards to trans rights. And I mentioned this in an earlier show, but I want to re-emphasize it, and I want you all to emphasize it if you have conversations about this, because it's a very salient point and logically destroys this fucking idiotic bullshit about not telling people that are parents when their children transition or change their moniker, change their pronouns, start dressing different, want to be called a different name from Sal to Susie or whatever it might be. Gavin Newsom just signed into law something I did not think he would do, a measure that mandates schools not to tell parents if their children change their pronouns or change their names. It's called AB 1955. Now, this I couldn't believe was put forward through the state legislature, and I thought there was no way in hell he would sign it because it is political suicide. Gavin Newsom already backed off of mandating children get the COVID vaccine, which was something that was on the table. Why did he do that? Not because Gavin Newsom doesn't think that they should, because Gavin Newsom's a stupid nepotistic fuck who doesn't give a fuck about anybody except himself. And, you know, his DNC nepotistic partners. Never forget, he was Nancy Pelosi's, I think, nephew-in-law at one point in time. Gavin Newsom shockingly signed this bill. If there's one thing that crosses the Rubicon, if there's one thing that crosses the line that makes people go, fuck that, it's messing with their children. We've been told by the powers that be in the medical industry and Biden's, top down affirmative care. Now, Biden's administration is now backed off of allowing minors to have any sort of surgeries for transitioning. That doesn't mean they can't have hormone therapy and all these other things that are still just as horrible for them. But they backed off of it. The UK has basically banned all hormones, all surgeries. So is Copenhagen, or so is Denmark. So have any number of the Nordic countries. I think, no, not Canada. Canada's still crazy. But every day there's more of these countries that are now changing because the evidence that has come out from the CAS study and others showcases that these people lied. Everybody in that, basically all the activists lied, everybody in that industry lied, the medical profession embarrassed itself, the psychology and psychiatric professions embarrassed themselves with this affirmative care model when they didn't question anything in regards to what causes this, the outcomes, the effects of this, the side effects. They lied to our faces about it while telling you the biggest lie, which was that your child, if not allowed to transition, will commit suicide. That was a lie repeated ad nauseum. They've done studies. It's complete bullshit. None of it's true. But they told you, and this has been repeated by people that are in lawsuits right now, by parents. You can find 100,000 cases now of people being told that this specific line is, would you rather have a living daughter or a dead son, or vice versa? Would you rather have a living son or a dead daughter when presented with a child saying they want to transition? This was the argument for the affirmative care model. This is basically the argument for that model. So let's use that logic and apply it to AB 1955, which says you're not allowed to tell parents the pronouns of a kid in school. If every kid that's going through transition is going to be suicidal if not fully allowed to transition, right? That's their premise. And also their premise was that trans kids and trans youth and trans people in general are vastly more likely to commit suicide. That was the premise they were told and repeated. You not telling me that my child wants to be called a different name, different pronoun, whatever it is not telling me that my child is suicidal, or at least is far more likely to have suicidal tendencies. In what way is that healthy? In what way does that make any sense? To deny a parent knowledge that their child may be fucking suicidal. Now, as I said, that's been debunked. It's not true. But let's use the logic, because if they're saying that we're not allowed to know about pronoun changes, and I have two daughters, too young to transition at this point. Well, maybe not if you're, who's that thing? Not Catherine Zeta-Jones. Charlize Theron. Maybe if you're not Charlize Theron's children, or any number of other celebrity dickheads whose children are transing at 3. I've got 2 daughters. You better bet your motherfucking ass if they change anything, if they identify in any different way, I need to know about it. And if the left's to be believed, they'll be suicidal, and I will be left in the dark if I'm not told. So anyway, take that with you. Guys, thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching. And again, welcome to those of you that are new to the show. Big appreciation again to Dave for having me on Part of the Problem. And if you want to subscribe here, please do it. We are shadow banned to shit. You might wonder, hey, Brian, why is your channel not bigger? Why do you not have more views on your videos? Well, we've been roughly around 7,000 subscribers now for what's got to be 5 to 6 years because YouTube decided that we were going to be shadow banned. We have content removed. We have strikes. This is the problem with being in one of the four bears in the space is that they cracked down on us early and hard, and they've kept the boot on our neck. So while now we're, at least for now, allowed to keep broadcasting on YouTube, you need to hit notify. Please do hit notify or else you will not see the content. They will not permit you to see the content. So make sure you hit that. You can, of course, find us on Rumble. They're not throttling us. We're picking up steam there, thank God. Of course, we've only been on there for about a year. And, of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Brian McWilliams, at Lions of Liberty. All right. All right, guys. Talk to you later. From me, Brian McWilliams, from the Lions of Liberty Network. And from Mean Age Daydream, keep those electric eyes on me, babe. And keep that ray gun to my head. Later.